So, what happens when the very person who creates a world-changing technology suddenly sounds the alarm? What if they warn that their own creation could actually endanger all of humanity? Well, that's exactly what's happening with Geoffrey Hinton, the man they call the Godfather of AI. And his warning? It's something we really need to understand.
I mean, when the Nobel Prize-winning pioneer of artificial intelligence gives this as career advice, you just have to stop and ask, why? What is he seeing that the rest of us aren't? This one little piece of advice, it kind of says everything about the huge, unsettling shift he believes we're all facing.
All right, so to really get to the bottom of this, we're first going to look at the man himself. Then we'll dive into why he's speaking out right now, unpack the two big threats he's worried about, look at this unstoppable race we seem to be in, and finally, get into what he thinks is the real, immediate cost to all of us.
So who exactly is Geoffrey Hinton? See, he isn't just some other commentator. This is the guy who has been a central figure, a real driving force in AI for 50 years. And it's that deep, insider credibility that makes his warnings so incredibly powerful.
Hinton's whole legacy, his life's work, is built on this one big idea: neural networks. For decades, when pretty much the entire AI world was focused on rigid logic and symbols, Hinton was the guy championing this other idea, that we should model AI on the human brain. It was a pretty radical concept back then, but it's the very foundation of the AI we use every single day now.
So look, this isn't some pundit on the sidelines. We're talking about the man who spent half a century building the engine, who saw his work totally validated when Google bought his company, and who won the Nobel Prize of Computing for it. He is the ultimate insider.
But then, right after reaching the absolute peak of his profession and watching his ideas change the world from inside Google, he did something nobody saw coming. Why would you walk away from all that? I mean, he wasn't pushed out, he wasn't fired, he chose to leave. And he did it for one very specific, very urgent reason. He quit so he could speak his mind, without any corporate filter. He felt this incredible duty to warn everyone about the risks of the very technology he helped bring into the world. He started to realize things were moving way, way faster than even he had ever imagined.
And this quote, wow, it just perfectly captures his biggest fear. What happens when we finally create something that's smarter than us? I mean, his analogy is just so blunt, and you can't forget it. We've always been the smartest creatures on the planet. What happens to us when we're not anymore? Now, Hinton's concerns aren't just some vague feeling of doom and gloom. He's actually broken them down into two very different kinds of threats. And understanding that difference is really, really important.
So he basically separates the dangers into two buckets. The first one is all about human misuse. Bad actors using the AI we have today to do bad things. But that second bucket, that's the one that really keeps him up at night. The existential threat. That's where the AI itself becomes the danger. And these near-term risks, I mean, they're already all over the headlines, right? We're talking about cyberattacks on a whole new level, the terrifying idea of AI-designed bioweapons, election manipulation, killer drones, and of course those social media echo chambers that are already pulling us apart.
And just to be clear, this isn't some far-off theoretical thing. Just look at the explosion in AI-powered cyberattacks. A reported 12,200% increase in just 1 year. That shows you just how fast these tools can get weaponized.
And then you get to the big one, the existential threat. When he's asked about the chances of AI actually wiping out humanity, he gives this gut-wrenching number. And the scariest part? It's the uncertainty. When the world's leading expert says he can't be sure, but his gut tells him there's a real chance, that's chilling.
Okay. So if the risks are that high, a logical question is, why don't we just stop? Why can't we all just agree to hit the brakes on this thing? Well, according to Hinton, it's because we are caught in a race that is almost impossible to stop.
There are a few massive forces pushing this forward. First, AI is just too useful, right? The promise of breakthroughs in medicine and science is huge. But at the exact same time, nations are racing for military supremacy, and the big tech companies are in this brutal fight for profit. It creates this loop where even if we try to regulate it, there are these giant loopholes like completely exempting the military.
So, okay, existential risk is a massive, scary idea. But Hinton is also deeply, deeply concerned about a much more immediate cost, one that could hit all of us in our daily lives. And it really comes down to two things: our jobs and our sense of purpose.
You've probably heard this phrase before, and Hinton, he agrees with it. But he follows that logic to a much more sobering conclusion. If one person with an AI can do the work of 5 people or 10 people, what happens to the other 4 or the other 9?
He gives this perfect little example with his own niece. A task at her job used to take 25 minutes. With an AI chatbot, it now takes her 5 minutes. That's a 5 times productivity jump, which is incredible for her company's bottom line. But it also means they might only need 1/5 of the people to get the same amount of work done.
And this right here, this is why the AI revolution is just fundamentally different from what came before. The Industrial Revolution replaced our muscles, right? But it left our minds, our intellectual labor, as the primary source of value. But this revolution? It's replacing our intellectual labor. So the terrifying question is, what's left?
Hinton really worries that this incredible disruption is going to throw gasoline on the fire of inequality. The wealth will just gush towards the people who own and control the AI systems, creating this massive gap between the rich and the poor that, in his words, leads to unstable, very nasty societies.
And for him, that's the most immediate threat to human happiness. It's not even just about the money. He thinks that even if you had something like a universal basic income, people would lose their sense of purpose, their dignity, that feeling of being useful. And that is so fundamental to being happy. And this brings us right back to where we started, with this profound, chilling warning from the Creator himself. Now, he's not saying it's completely hopeless, but what he is saying is that the stakes could not possibly be higher. We are at a critical moment in history, and we have to face the possibilities, no matter how scary they are.